CBS News has learned Russian hackers were able to gain access to the control rooms of U.S. electric utilities last year. Federal officials say the hackers work for a state-sponsored group known as Dragonfly or Energetic Bear. They were able to compromise the grid to the point where they could have caused blackouts and disrupted power flows throughout the country. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues in Washington. Jeff, this is a threat I feel like we've heard about for a long time. So what was the new information today?
Well, the new information is the extent of these intrusions. You know, Brooke, imagine if these power grids had been shut down. And I think, yes, we've heard about these threats before, but the question is the message getting through? These Russian intrusions, we learned today, more widespread than originally known. DHS officials gave a briefing where they said that there have been hundreds of government critical infrastructure, private companies affected by this, hundreds of victims. And so that was a bigger number than we'd heard before.
And how did they do it? And can we be doing a better job protecting this stuff?
Well, you can always do a better job of protecting critical infrastructure, especially when it comes to these types of cyber intrusions. But what they did is really fairly simple. This was another one of those spear phishing email attacks where a victim clicks on a link and then the hackers get control of usernames, passwords, and then they were able to use that information to get into these utility control systems. And according to the DHS, DHS officials said that they were in a position where they could have just flipped, switched, and shut down a power grid. And so that's how close they came to potentially taking control of a power grid. And that's why people are concerned.
And we know about it. We've known about it for a year. Is the threat gone, or is this still something that could happen?
No, this is an ongoing threat, and there are people that I've talked to today who feel like this is these Russian hackers laying the groundwork for something else. The question is, what is that end game? We've seen activity like this in the Ukraine, multiple occasions. Russian hackers have shut down Ukrainian power grids, and these are cases that the Department of Homeland Security have studied over the last several years. There were incidents in 2015 and 2016 in the Ukraine that have been studied by U.S. officials. So that has been an ongoing concern, and the problem is you never really know when these Russian hackers are in your system until they start taking data out, or in cases like this, potentially shutting a switch down that cripples a power grid.
We described this group as state-sponsored, and it reminded me of the press conference with Vladimir Putin a week ago where he said, if meddling happened from Russia, it wasn't the Russian government. We have nothing to do with it. Is this the same kind of thing where they're being cute about whether it's the Russian government proper or someone who's tangentially related?
It is. This is similar to the intrusions that we've been talking about in terms of the 2016 election. These are state-sponsored hackers who are carrying out these types of intrusions. And it is really part of a pattern that U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials have noticed with these Russian hackers. So Russian officials might deny that there is any connection, but of course U.S. officials don't agree with that at all. They have seen the intelligence. They have obviously made the connection. And they are reaching out to private industry. They are trying to help critical infrastructure counter these threats, which, as I mentioned, are ongoing.
Okay. Jeff Pegues, a lot to think about. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.